This week's Parshat Tzav is also called Shabbos HaGodol, because it's the Shabbos before Pesach. We have to understand what the concept of Shabbos HaGodol is, what makes this Shabbos so special. It's called the Big Shabbos. The Torah, amongst others, bring a source for Shabbos HaGodol, that it commemorates a special halacha that the Jewish people had in Egypt in preparation of their Korban Pesach, a halacha that was only for that generation, of Mekhol Ba'asar, that on the 10th of Nisan they had to separate the Paschal lamb that they were going to use for their Korban Pesach. So it was a din of, Mishchul Kul, pull it and take it, the Paschal lamb. So we say, we have a tradition that the 10th of Nisan that year in Mitzrayim came out on Shabbos, so therefore it was the Shabbos before their Pesach. So to commemorate that, the Shabbos before Pesach, we make this big deal, and the Rav gives a drasha to commemorate that event, because that event of the 10th of Nisan came out on a Shabbos. So there are two obvious questions in front of us. First and foremost is, why was that halacha for that generation alone, the special halacha of separating your Korban Pesach on the 10th of Nisan, why was it special for that generation and no longer necessary from that point onwards? All ensuing generations, there's no such halacha of preparing the Korban Pesach on the 10th of Nisan. Why did they need it, and why do we not need it? That's our first obvious question we have to deal with. The next obvious question is that when you want to commemorate an event, you commemorate the date, not the day. So we should be doing something special, and the Rav should be giving his drasha on the 10th of Nisan. Why are we commemorating the day that came out, on the day of week of Shabbos, as opposed to the date? The proper way to commemorate an event, like let's say Pesach, we do it by date, not by day. So you would think also this event of separating Korban Pesach should be done by the date, and not by the day it happened to have fallen out on. So why do we indeed do it on Shabbos, which is the day, and not the date? All right, to understand these two questions, and how really these two questions actually answer each other, we have to first posit one more question, and that is in the name of this Shabbos, Shabbos HaGodol. It's the big Shabbos. What's so big about this Shabbos? It's the same 24 hours that every other Shabbos is. What's so big about Shabbos HaGodol? Right, to understand what's so big about Shabbos HaGodol, you have to understand what the term "big" means in philosophical terms. Right, big is a relative term. It's a non-absolute term. There's no particular measurement that's called big. It's all relative. Something is big relative to something that's smaller than it, but it can be something even bigger than that thing which we call big, which will make the thing that we call big look small by comparison. So, what does big mean in absolute terms? Is there an absolute meaning? A certain philosophically correct meaning for big that's a true meaning that is absolutely true? Right. So, the Medrash says in the pasuk, Hashem Elokai Gadal Tmar, Hashem my God, you're very big. You've become very big. It's a little translation, pasuk in Tehillim, and the Medrash is very bothered by this. God is perfect and unchanging, so there's no such thing as him becoming bigger, because he doesn't change and he's perfect already. There's no room for improvement. So in what way, Gadal Tamad, you're very big? So the Medrash says, Kodem Shabrasa Mecha Gadol Yisrael. Before you created the world, you were big. Misha Barasas Amecha, once you created the world, Gadal Tad Ma'oid, now you're very big. Right, Karim Shekilsos HaNeviim, before the Neviim praised you, Gadol Yisrael, you were great. You were big. Misha Kilsos HaNeviim, but once the Neviim praised you, Hashem Elokai Gadal Tamod, now you've become very good, very big. Very big. So, the term very big, Chazal understand is going on the creation of the world, or alternatively, the praise that God got from the prophets. So of course, in these two things, there is no change in God. Right? God is the same God that He was like we say in our daily prayers, Atu ad shalom nivra olam, Atu b'shalom. You're the same God before you created the world. You're the same God after you created the world. God doesn't get anything out of having a world. He doesn't need it. So the change of going from pre-creation to post-creation is not a change in God, it's a change in the world. Same thing, God doesn't need the praise of the Nevi'im, but the change is that the Nevi'im have praised Him. So the change is in the Nevi'im, that the Nevi'im give Him praise, but it's not a change in God. But that's called that God has now become very big. He was big, now He's very big. So to understand this, that which we say He was big is to allude to God has all perfection already. He doesn't need us. The very big is that we add whatever praise we can give Him. We add to Him our acknowledgement. Of course, He doesn't need it, but that's called the very big, right? Of course, the very big is only in us, not in Him. He is perfect and unchanging, and that's what we allude to say, you were big already. The very big is just that we add to His perfection our recognition of Him. That's the world now. Once the world is created, now you're very big. What's very big is that now the world acknowledges its Creator. What's now very big is that the Nevi'im acknowledge and praise God. So the change is in us, not a change in God, but it is called, as it were, that God got bigger. So the pshat is, God got bigger is that God consciousness was confined to God alone. Only God knew of Himself. But once He created the world, now others know of Him. Others know of Him, others acknowledge Him, others praise Him. So as it were, understand this, God got bigger. The pshat is that God has extended, so to speak, not physically, but extended to the realm of the consciousness of the creation. The creations are aware of Him. The creations are aware of God. That's called God got bigger. Because first knowledge of God was confined to God Himself, and now knowledge of God, cognizance of God, recognition of God is not confined to God Himself. It has become bigger, as extended. That's what it means it got bigger, as extended to the realm of human consciousness. That's what we mean Hashem is big. So He really always was big. We point that out to say that God Himself is not gaining anything, but the very big is that now people are aware of it also. So it's called that, in the words of the Psalm, Hispashtus Okus, that divinity has spread, not that physically spread, because God is everywhere already, but it means God consciousness has spread, and that's called getting big. That God consciousness has left its confined boundaries, as it were, being limited to God Himself, and extended to the realm of human consciousness, the realm of creation consciousness. So that's what we mean by big. So you have to understand that, as we explained in our HaGodol series, that prior to Yetzias Mitzrayim, there was no God consciousness on earth. And that's why God says He has to bring all these makas, He has to bring all these plagues, Lamad Saper Shmi B'chol Haaretz, in order that my name should be spoken about throughout the earth, to bring God consciousness to the world. God is doing this. So, the point of Yetzias Mitzrayim is, as it were, to add this bigness, to add that God consciousness shouldn't be confined to Hashem, and the angels, which were aware at the time of the time of God. He wants to extend it, that God consciousness should become bigger, i.e., God consciousness should extend throughout the earth. Man saper shmi b'chol haaretz, right? Just speak my name throughout the earth. With the act of separating, separating the Korban Pesach. So the Medrash says, that there is points out the double lashon that we quoted before, mishchu v'khu, pull and take. So why is there this double lashon, pull and take? Just say take, or just say pull the animal. Why pull and take? So the Medrash understands the double lashon, the double phrase of pull and take, referring to the Jewish people themselves. Mishchu atzmechem mi'avodah zarah. Pull goes on to Jewish people. Pull yourself away from idol worship, because culturally they were very close to the Egyptian people. They grew up in that culture, so that's where their mindset was. Pull yourself away from all the idol worship of Egypt. Pull yourself away and take for yourself this flock, these sheep that you're dedicating for the mitzvah of Hashem. Another lashon is, in the Chazal, Mishchatzchem mi'avodah zarah, pull yourself away from idol worship. Chues atzmechem, and take yourself la'avodas Hashem, take yourself towards divine service. That really, the pulling and separating the lamb to be the Pesach offering was really something that they were doing to themselves as a result, that they were separating themselves from the rest of Egypt, right, to become the vessel that God is going to put His revelation upon. Right? God's revelation on earth is through the Jewish people. We are the ones that attest to Him. So separating ourselves from the Egyptian people was to now make us an independent nation, different from the Egyptian people, and being that we're a different type of people, we could be the people that will be the vessel for the permanent revelation of God on earth. And that's the mission of the Jewish people. We are the vessel that receives God's revelation on earth, and everyone else finds out about God through the Jewish people. Whether it's what we teach them, or whether it's they observe the miracles that God does for us for our benefit. So the actual act of separating us to become a permanent vessel, to be the vessel that holds God's revelation on earth, and that's the bigness, that was the act of pulling the Paschal lamb. And that was necessary, because as we explained also in the HaGodol series, by Pesach God catapulted us to a new world order. That's the Passover, the jump. So what makes us different from the rest of the human race, that we should have this privilege of being catapulted to a higher level? God could have taken any tribe or nation and done this to them also. What makes us special? That we should be different, that we should be the ones catapulted to the higher level, not a different nation. So we make ourselves different and ready and prepared to receive the higher order by taking the Paschal lamb. That act of separating the lamb for divine service was also an act of separating ourselves from Egyptian culture and preparing ourselves for divine service. And now that made us a notion, being a different nation existentially. We're ready to become the vessel for all of God's revelations that He's going to give Seder night and forever after. So that was why that was necessary in that generation, to separate us as a separate people with a separate destiny, the people that are destined to be the vehicle of God's revelation, the vehicle of, as it were, God's bigness. So the reason why we don't need this in subsequent generations is because once God gave a Torah, so there's one of the mitzvahs that constantly renews this concept that we're separate from the rest of humanity, right? And we have a special relationship with God. The rest of humanity doesn't have. We are God's witnesses. We're the ones that attest to His existence and power on the face of the earth, and that's His bigness. There's one mitzvah that's parallel to all these things we've been discussing in today's session, and that's the mitzvah of Shabbos. As we know, Shabbos is a holy day that doesn't have a mate with the rest of the days of the week, and that's what Chazal say. Shabbos complained to God, I don't connect with any of the days of the week, I'm different. So God says, will you be together with the Jewish people? Knesset Yud Ben Zuga, the Jewish assembly will be your mate. Similarly, Shabbos is called the wonderful gift that God gave only to the Jewish people, and Goyim are not even allowed to keep Shabbos. Goy Shabbos Chayv Misa, if a Goy keeps Shabbos, he deserves death. It's trespassing, it's special for the Jewish people. So Shabbos represents, something special only for the Jewish people. Something holy. It's God's day, because Shabbos is that God rests from creating heaven and earth. That's something that He did. That's something that belongs to Him. He's the one who deserves Shabbos, and He shares it with the Jewish people. we share God's reality, His day of rest that He deserves, because He's the one who created heaven and earth. And so when He rested on the seventh day, He gave it over to us. So it's called we share God's reality, and it's special for us. For the rest of the nation's world, it's like trespassing. Shabbos also is the day that attests to the fact that God is the creator. Shabbos is a day of testimony. So Shabbos and the Jewish people are functions of each other. God's Eidim, God's witnesses on earth are the Shabbos and are the Jewish people, and that's what Chazal say. There are three that testify one on another: Shabbos, the Jewish people, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are a ring of witnesses that attest to each other. Right? So we say in HaGodol, right, as we separate Shabbos from the days of the week to show that it's special. So Hamabdu ben Kodesh L'chol, we separate between the holy and the profane. Ben Ol Choshech, from the light, holy light, and Choshech and darkness, talking about lack of spiritual light. Ben Yisrael La'amim, and also it's the separation between the Jewish people and all the nations, because Shabbos is only for the Jewish people, and we are the people of Shabbos because we are the people of God. We are the people chosen to be the vehicle of this revelation on earth, right? And the Goyim are not. So the Shabbos is what we have every year, 52 times a year, right? That every Shabbos renews this concept that we're special for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are the vehicle to bring His revelation into the world. We are the vehicle of His bigness. Right? It's special for us, and the Goyim don't have it. So, in the generation of Egypt, since a Torah wasn't given yet, so there wasn't Shabbos on earth yet, so the only way to show that the Jewish people are special people, right, and that's why the Jewish people deserve a Pesach, because they're different from the rest of the world, and that's why they deserve to be catapulted to this higher level. The only way to show it was having this special mitzvah of separating the Paschal Lamb, which was a vehicle, a means of them separating themselves, to be separate to belong to God alone. But ever since Torah was given, we don't need this mitzvah anymore, because Shabbos is the self-renewing vehicle, right? The self-renewing mechanism, right? That perpetually renews the fact that we're a special people unto God. Right? And we are His witnesses on earth, and we are the vehicle of His revelation to earth. We have the Shabbos instead. Right? So in that generation, it was the special avodah. It happened on the 10th of Nisan. But ever since Torah was given, the essence of what they did on the 10th of Nisan is captured by Shabbos. So now, just like Pesach is our national birthday, right? But we have to, as it were, separate ourselves from the rest of the world, that we deserve to be born a special nation, right, that we are destined to have a higher destiny from Pesach onwards, to be destined to have that higher destiny, right, to truly deserve this catapulting. So we have to separate ourselves from the rest of humanity, right, to be special unto Hashem, right. So that was done in their generation, in Egypt, by separating the Paschal Lamb, because they didn't have Shabbos yet, because Torah wasn't given yet. But once Torah is given, so Shabbos is the thing that perpetually renews the fact that we're special unto Hashem. We have Shabbos, the Goyim not. We are God's witnesses, the Goyim aren't. That's all alluded to in the Shabbos. That's special for the Jewish people. It's the day of testimony to God's existence, and that's what's so big about Shabbos HaGodol. This Shabbos in general, is called the day of divine revelation, because it's the day that God consciousness comes to the world. You're supposed to meditate on the fact that God is the creator, right, and He made all this, and the Goyim learn it from us by seeing us rest on Shabbos. That's our testimony to them, by them observing us observe Shabbos, right? So Shabbos in general is the day of big, right, the day where God consciousness, grows beyond the realm of heaven and penetrates earth. That's the bigness, and this is the big Shabbos, right? Because this Shabbos before Pesach is a renewal of that original pseudo Shabbos that they kept in Egypt. That since there wasn't Shabbos they had to separate themselves by separating the Paschal Lamb. It's no longer necessary to do it by separating the Paschal Lamb, because we have the Shabbos itself that renews our being special unto Hashem. But it has to be done again every year before Pesach. Just like Pesach is a renewal of our being chosen, We also have to renew our deserving and being destined to be chosen. And that's what's so big about Shabbos HaGodol. This is the Shabbos that renews the whole concept that we are destined to be the vehicle that's going to be the bigness of God as a world. We're destined to be this vehicle of Godol, this vehicle that brings God consciousness to the world. Right? We are destined to become this people that receive the Pesach. That's what's so big about Shabbos HaGodol. Right. If you've been enjoying our video Divrei Torah on the Parsha, then you'll absolutely love our HaGodol Yomi series. I encourage you to go take a look at it. It will definitely aid you to be properly prepared for the Seder. It's never too late to sign up, even on Erev Pesach, because all the daily shiurim are archived and available to anyone who subscribes. We also encourage you to take a look at our special 9-part Sfiras HaOmer series, which is very necessary to properly use the Omer, to be truly prepared to receive Torah again on Chag HaShavuos. Good chance.